2023 will be a defining year for Indian diplomacy, and part of that effort will be India taking on China. As of today, China is India's biggest foreign policy challenge. Same with the United States. China is enemy number one. The US is caught in a cold war with China. India is locked in a border standoff with China. So it makes sense for them to come together. India and the US have joined hands. They're preparing to counter China on three fronts: infrastructure, defense, and diplomacy. Let's tell you how. Infrastructure first. There's a lot happening on this front. India is ramping up its border infra. An all-weather highway, a tunnel that will run through the mountains. This will be in the border state of Arunachal Pradesh. It will improve connectivity to Ladakh. India will be able to move troops and hardware faster. This highway will be the shortest route to the border. It will be built at a cost of $206 million and will be completed by December 2025. And that's not all. India is bolstering its border defenses. More soldiers will be sent to the front. Almost 50,000 soldiers are already deployed. Another 9,000 troops will be added. What about China? How many troops does Beijing have? We do not have the exact number, but it's believed that the PLA maintains a similar level of presence at the border with India. The latest border standoff with China began 3 years back. There have been at least 17 rounds of dialogue since. But China refuses to de-escalate, so India is left with no choice but to match Chinese deployments. The US too wants to help India. It is willing to share not just advanced military hardware, but also the know-how to make these weapons. Reports say India and the US are jointly developing UAVs, unmanned aerial vehicles. In other words, drones. A prototype is being developed. Its first trials are expected to take place later this year. How does a joint venture help? It's about the ownership of intellectual property, or IP. India and the US will share the rights, and this collaboration is not just limited to one project. A few more initiatives are in the pipeline, and this includes counter-drone systems. This is used to detect or intercept drones while they're still in the sky, and an intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance platform. How would China assess this development? We don't have a comment from Beijing yet, but safe to say they won't be thrilled. China is already punishing American defense manufacturers. Yesterday, it slapped sanctions on 2 US companies, Lockheed Martin and Raytheon. What for? For arms sales to Taiwan. Beijing is retaliating after the spy balloon scandal, and America's moved to shoot it down. Earlier this week, China vowed to take countermeasures. Yesterday, it did.
The Chinese unmanned civilian airship that strayed into US airspace was completely a force majeure accident. But what was tested was the US side's sincerity and ability to properly manage the crisis and stabilize China-US relations. The US side cannot simultaneously seek communication and dialogue while at the same time spreading conflicting lies and escalating the crisis.
The US has called these sanctions symbolic and unnecessary, which brings me to the diplomatic response. There are 2 developments on this front. Number one, a top American official is visiting Taiwan. His name is Michael Chase. He is the Deputy Assistant Secretary for Defense for China. Why is this significant? Because visits by US defense officials to Taiwan are rare. In the last 40 years, 40 years, only one of them has been to Taiwan. So this will be the second visit. Back in Washington, D.C., American lawmakers are pushing for stronger ties with India. And this is the second major development. A resolution has been introduced in the US Senate. It says the state of Arunachal Pradesh is quote-unquote an integral part of India. It supports India's sovereignty and territorial integrity and condemns China, and I'm quoting again, condemns China for its use of military force. Reports say the resolution has bipartisan support in the US, and this could just be the beginning. The momentum is clearly against China, and India-US partnership has immense potential to contain the dragon.